We just getting started, baby. Did anybody see what Mr. Wardell Steph Curry did to the Portland Trail Blazers? They were nobodies. They beat the Giants. Trash. They beat the Broncos. Trash. If you ever watched Dragon Ball Z, my man's was Super Saiyan. I couldn't wear this until we actually caught a dub. And he did all of this damage in 36 minutes. Let that sink in. They beat the Eagles, trash. The Cowboys, trash. The Bengals, trash. The Jaguars, trash. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here on Rob's 2 Cents. My good people, hello, world. I'd like to welcome you guys back to the show that's hot with your boy, Rob Scott. This is Rob's 2 Cents. What's going on, everybody? It's a real special day today, guys, because I actually have my first guest on the show. Momentous occasion, episode 40. It only took 40 episodes. It doesn't matter. But I have my first guest. This is my guy right here. This is brother Kevin Allen right here. You know, as you guys know, used to work at the credit union. This was the man in charge. This was the guy that gave me faith and, you know, put me in a position where I need to be one of my many mentors there at that company. Huge wrestling fan because you guys are in treat for a good show because this is Rob's 2 Cents, the wrestling edition, where we got to show love to everything and all that is wrestling. Brother Kevin Allen, how you doing today, brother?
Good morning, Rob. Good morning from Las Vegas. It's hot.
Out there in Vegas.
I'm in Vegas. I feel like I'm in the depths of Kane's hell. But slowly, we are going to pull him up, and I'm going to lay the smackdown on my top 10 wrestling factions today.
Look, in a minute, you're going to hear Paul Bear come out of, oh, yeah. That's how hot it is out there. Well, as Kevin alluded to, we are going to focus today on legendary factions. As you know, in the world of wrestling, factions are a thing that's needed in those companies, man. I mean, we grew up on great factions, Degeneration X, NWO, NWO Red and Black. I can just keep going on and on. But we're going to give you our top 10, and we also have some honorable mentions in here. And with Kevin Allen being the first guest, if you want to, you can let the people know a little bit about yourself before we begin, just so they understand exactly who Kevin is. I mean, this man came into work with Ric Flair socks on. That's how I knew that was my guy.
Rob, well, thank you for the intro. I'm a happily married man to my wife, Audra, 2 small boys at home, 8 and 5, that do this when their dad talks it to them. A lifelong wrestling fan. 7 years ago yesterday, I was front row at Monday Night Raw when the Shield broke up. I saw that on my Facebook. I was there in living color. That was the night the Big Show walked up on a commercial, and he's 7 foot tall, 500 pounds. I said, "Just keep walking, pal."
I want no problem.
No, and during a commercial, he's like, "I'm so scared. I'm so scared." I can remember my first intro to wrestling was in Terre Haute, Indiana at the Armory. 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. My dad took me to go watch Bobo Brazil and Dick the Bruiser.
Oh, wow.
And the Crusher. And that was my first intro. And
that's history right there.
that's what all started. And it's Saturday mornings. And I will tell you, as many people say, the most influential time in your life will always be college.
Yeah.
Always. Don't care who you are. College is the greatest time of your life until you become a parent. And my college years were 97 through 02-ish in that area.
Okay.
So the Attitude Era was my time in college. And we had 2 TVs that were exactly the same make and model, and one remote would run both of them.
Okay.
And so we would turn on Nitro on one channel and Raw on the other, and we would mute one. And we would sit up in the room, about 7 of us. We'd turn our dressers over, put a couch on one and a couch below, stadium seating. And all you had to do was hit mute, and one muted, one unmuted. And you could watch both shows at the same time.
Hey, during that Attitude Era, it was a lot to watch because you got the NWO on WCW, you got DX on WWE, WWF at the time. So it was like, whoa, okay, who do I want to turn it to? Because I remember that. I remember those days like it was yesterday. It's funny you mentioned during that time you're in college. During that time, I'm in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and we're going to school imitating what we just saw, having wrestling matches in the bathroom. So,
and my dad, I graduated. My last name's Allen, so I was second across the stage in my little class of '63 in Indiana. And I walked across the stage, and my dad was a police officer, and he was a chief of police, so he was there probably up front. And so I walk across the stage. I remember my dad walking onto the basketball court and giving me the 2 sweet on the basketball court at graduation. 1997, man. The heart of the top of it. Yeah.
Hey, I know that was a good time. I know that was a good time. So I know that I'm talking to a historian here. So
I'm not Conrad Thompson. I can tell you that.
So this top 10 is going to be interesting. So since you are the guest on the show, and again, I appreciate you. I'm humbled that you wanted to participate and go on this venture with me. I really do appreciate you, Kev. You are my guest. I will allow you to give us who comes in at number 10 for you.
All right. Well, first, let me just tell you my criteria.
Okay.
My criteria was a couple things. How many Hall of Famers do they have?
Okay.
How many championships were won? Did they change the business? Did they launch superstars? I ranked one of them pretty high on this list because they launched some superstars. And as a kid, the pendulum of hatred or love.
Yeah.
Right. Did it swing either way? If it's in the middle, I didn't care. But looking back, man, if I hated them, they were there.
Yeah.
If I loved them, they were there.
Right.
So before I get started with my top 10, there were 2 behind the scenes factions that were never seen on television except once. One of them was the curtain call. Right. The influence of the Clique, of course. Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, X-Pac, Triple H. And what came out of that, 2 of them left. Shawn Michaels wasn't going to be disciplined for it.
No.
Triple H was supposed to win the King of the Ring, and Vince tells him, you're not winning now. But what came from that was Stone Cold was selected to win and then it all started.
The promo of all promos.
But had the Clique not came out from behind the scenes and done that curtain call, none of this happens. Right.
You got a point.
All right. So I don't list them in my top 10 or an alternate. The second behind the scenes that I had to list was the Bone Street Crew. You look at the Undertaker's tattoo, BS, right? Undertaker, Savio Vega, Henry Godwin, the Godfather, Midian,
yep.
Bryan Adams, who was Crush,
who was also his cousin.
That's right. Paul Bearer and Mr. Fuji. Like the legendary Bone Street Crew, who from time to time, from what I've read and watched, kept the Clique in line.
They kept everybody in line. I mean, they had wrestling court, when Undertaker was judge,
He was the judge. And JBL was always the prosecutor.
Oh, yeah. See, you bringing up real history right now. And I didn't know we were going to go there, but I am glad that you did go there because like you said, especially with the Clique, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have got the legendary Austin 316 promo. We wouldn't have got the NWO, the Outsiders invading the WCW. We wouldn't have got Degeneration X. So, and it made Triple H really work from the ground, which he, as we know, he retired as probably one of the greatest heels to ever, wrestle in professional wrestling. You love to hate Triple H.
I love it. All right, so here's my alternates.
Okay.
Here's my alternates with no explanation.
Okay, alternates first. Let's go.
New Day.
Okay.
Love them. Right? The Spirit Squad. Come on, not a great faction.
Okay.
But I knew it'd bring a smile to your face. They did. Now, Dolph Ziggler did.
Dolph Ziggler, I know.
And I had to bring in some ECW with Raven's Nest, old school ECW.
Oh, I didn't think about Raven's Flock. Oh Lord.
And then I will tell you my last alternate, and the reason why they don't get on my top 10 is because they were just in the middle for me. The Pendulum was just they're not. They weren't. I didn't hate them.
Okay.
I didn't love them, but they were important to what was happening during the Attitude Era. Was the corporation, Vince, Shane, The Rock, Shamrock, Bossman, a lot of Hall of Famers. To me, I just didn't feel it.
I felt it.
All right. Well, I'll hear your list in a minute. I'll hear your list in a minute.
But
so tell me
I do love your alternate list. I wouldn't included the Spirit Squad. That was definitely a miss for me. But like you said, we did get Dolph Ziggler to show off. And Dolph Ziggler, as I tell people this all the time. If you want to talk about as far as wrestling ability, getting as close to Shawn Michaels as possibly can, just wrestling ability. I'm not talking about his ability to cut promos or his mystique, but I'm talking about as far as just getting in the ring. I need a great match. Go. Dolph Ziggler can wrestle with a broomstick.
Put him in the ring with Seth Rollins or AJ Styles. If you have you could instead of the Shawn Michaels Bret Hart 60-minute match, you could have an hour and 30-minute match with those guys. The
athleticism that'll be in that ring, let me tell you. Okay.
Yep.
So since you gave me your alternates, I'm gonna have to give you mine, and you're not gonna like the first one that I say, because you probably have them in your top 10. I'm going to say the Freebirds.
Oh. Damn it, Rob.
All right, look, I didn't know much about the Freebirds. Okay, I just know they were, what's his name, Michael Hayes. I just know he was in that group. So that's all I know, and I know that they're the reasoning that other groups have installed the Freebird rule, meaning if one of us are champion, we're all champion. So you don't know who you're going to be defending the title against.
Also, the first team to come out with music that was
right.
Traditional music.
Yeah. So they gave you
that's a great one.
The spectacle that they gave us today. I included the Main Event Mafia. Now we did go over which companies we can include, and I said big time wrestling companies. So New Japan, WWE, WCW. This company is part of TNA. The Main Event Mafia, Kurt Angle, Sting, Booker T, who just stole the show for me when he was doing this Black Snow impersonation. He was hilarious, commenting on his own wrestling ability. That dude was funny. Kevin Nash and Scott Steiner. I mean, you had some heavy hitters in that group.
All Hall of Famers except Steiner.
Yeah, and we know Steiner would be one if he didn't flip off the rail so much.
If he closed his mouth.
And then I have the Nexus. I put the Nexus in there because they had just an impact on the way that they arrived. I mean, we had never seen anything like that. You come out there in John Cena's match. We just seen you guys on Tough Enough. You guys get together, you beat up John Cena, you beat up the ring announcers, you beat up the guys holding the camera, you beat up the referees, you tear the ring set apart. I really wish that creative would have done more with the Nexus. You guys really had magic there. The Nexus, man, and Wade Barrett was a hell of a leader. I don't agree with them giving the reins to CM Punk. But it is what it is. I have the Hart Foundation in my honorable mentions. I have to give love to Brett. I actually love that Hart Foundation when this was heel Brett. Heel Brett was something to see, especially when they had Brian Pillman in the group. So that group consists of the British Bulldog, Owen Hart, Nine Hart, and then you have Brian Pillman along with the GOAT, one of the GOATs, Bret Hart. I have to tell him he's one of the greatest tacticians in the ring. The guy can put on a rest. That match with him and Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13. I remember watching that live. That match still gives me chills. And that WrestleMania
double turn
was in Chicago, by the way. That WrestleMania was in Chicago, by the way.
I watched a YouTube on that the other day. It was a watch along, and Stone Cold was talking about how well Bret sold. And he is notorious for when he would get slung into the corner, he would slam his back and fall down.
Yeah.
And it made it look like you could just kill a guy when you put him into the turnbuckle.
Like he was just wailing on him, man. Bret Hart was, I got to give Bret Hart his just due. And finally, the Wyatt family. I like the Wyatt family. They had a cult appearance. I really wish WWE would have did more with them as well. I still love Bray Wyatt. I think that he's too creative for that company, kind of like Matt Hardy was. So,
Yep.
the Wyatt family, though, yeah, just their interests alone, man, just seeing everybody hold up the lighters and the fireflies, you know what I mean? The Wyatt family did it for me. So those are my 5.
I love the Freebirds one, man. And growing up, I'm a little bit older than you. I can remember watching WCCW on ESPN or AWA on ESPN right after school, 4:00.
Oh,
and syndicated. And the Freebirds, one of the things they did was they never stayed in a company too long. That's back in the territory days, right?
Territory days.
WWE was taking over their global domination, but you still had territories throughout the company. And the Freebirds would bounce around. They'd go to WCCW for 3 or 4 months and beat up the champions and beat the Von Erichs and get tons of heat. And then they'd go down to Mid-South and sell out the New Orleans Superdome. And then they'd go up to NWA in the Carolinas. And they'd bounce up to Minnesota in the AWA. They never stayed around. And what's interesting about them is many people see them as like one of the greatest factions ever.
Yeah.
Is Terry Bam Bam Gordy and another guy that I'm going to talk about here shortly.
Okay.
Become one of the probably top tag teams ever in Japan.
Okay.
After their run.
Oh, you say Japan. Oh, okay. Oh, who's in your group? Okay. All right.
Hey.
Okay.
Drop it.
Okay. So I'll mention number 10 first, and then I'll let you go.
All right, write this down.
Number 10. Speaking of New Japan, the Bullet Club.
Studs.
I have to go with the Bullet Club because even though I heard stories about New Japan wrestling, I never too much paid attention to it. So I just hit his ring. Oh, this Bullet Club is. I'm like, who is the Bullet Club? I actually got to catch the end of Prince Devitt, who's now known as Finn Balor, his reign with the Bullet Club, and I actually watched the history on it. He was a nice guy, and he just got cocky. He became the real rock and roller. And the Bullet Club, you had Bad News Folly, you had the Young Bucks, you had Luke and Gallows and Anderson. So I mean, you had some heavy Tonga, you had some heavy hitters in that group, and then you bring in the AJ Styles, which was my favorite carnation of that group when AJ ran things, because he took them to new heights, and you looked up and everybody in the Bullet Club had gold.
It's pretty good.
I have to go Bullet Club as number 10.
All right.
Only reason they're so low on the list because they copied the style of the NWO. So they copied the originals with the Too Sweet. I did like the whole little gun signal, but
if you're going to go there,
hold this up, you kind of lose a little credibility.
If you're going to go there, you do know that Eric Bischoff stole the concept of NWO from Japan.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that.
All right. So
I heard about that as well.
Here's my number 10. Straight out of the 1980s. One of my favorites of all time. And I don't know why they just were cool, was the Varsity Club.
Okay. I haven't heard
Kevin Sullivan.
Oh.
Kevin Sullivan led the Varsity Club, and they all came out in singlets. They were all legit badass dudes who were college wrestlers. Mike Rotundo came out in his Syracuse singlet. Rick Steiner came out in his Michigan's, where he got his start. Dr. Death Steve Williams in his Oklahoma, and Dangerous Danny Spivey came out in Georgia. 5 legit badass college wrestlers were part of a faction in the 80s in the NWA called the Varsity Club.
Wow.
How many Hall of Famers do you have? Couple, maybe not even any. Now Rotundo's family, obviously, with the Blackjacks and Barry Windham and the Wyatts, and then obviously there, the Steiners. But,
IRS, man.
a bunch of 5 or 6s on my list.
Yeah.
But just collectively, the concept of we're just going to pull together all these college wrestlers. And there's something about me, if you want to work strong style and stiff, and no one's beating this group.
Oh, yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
Varsity Club, number 10.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna go a little bit of my era growing up at number 9. The Nation of Domination. Yes. And with this group, I also understand because I'm a black man, and it was just great to see some black guys that were strong. You know what I mean? They They stood, wasn't, any of the stuff you kind of see today. These guys stood on something. They believed in something, and they gave us The Rock. They gave us The Rock, and that's a Hall of Famer all himself. Farouk is a Hall of Famer. Mark Henry is a Hall of Famer. The Godfather is a Hall of Famer. And D'Lo one day is probably going to go in the Hall of Fame, at least as a trainer, because D'Lo has been in the wrestling business for so long and still has a lot to do with the wrestling industry. So, I still remember that famous Stone Cold promo against them, which is one of my favorites. He said, "This ain't a race thing. This ain't a black or white thing. This is a me kicking your ass thing." I just loved that.
I'll
dynamic.
never forget when The Rock gave Farouk the painting of himself.
Oh yeah,
gave him all watches.
Gave him all Rolexes. He said, "You get a painting of me," and that's a beautiful gift. And remember, what the watch couldn't even fit on Mark Henry. This massive guy, and shout out to Mark Henry too, who just made his huge appearance at AEW. So now, Mark Henry is all elite at WWE. AEW is coming. They coming for you.
Hey, I'm not going to speak on someone I ranked higher because I think based upon my criteria with the number of Hall of Famers, they're climbing that list.
Okay,
as a faction. I think we're going to look back and think, man, the Nation pushed some dudes.
They did.
So I'll get to them later.
Okay.
All right. My number 9, the incarnation or the group in the late 80s, early 90s of Heenan's family. Let me give you this. This is the group that I'm talking about at the time. Hall of Famer Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Andre the Giant, Harley Race, Rick Rude, all Hall of Famers.
All Hall of Famers.
Terry Taylor is considered one of the greatest trainers of all time, and then the Brooklyn Brawler.
Of course.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love the Brooklyn Brawler?
that Heenan's family, if you look back at the amount of championships, the Hall of Famers, Haku was in that group too at the time. That's the time period.
Yeah.
Ming, badass Ming.
Ooh.
That's my number 9. I dare you to beat that one, Rob.
Well, you already mentioned this group, and I can't believe they didn't make your top 10. But I gotta show love to the owner. The corporation comes in at number 8 for me, because what Vince McMahon was able to do is that he made it not wise to cross the boss. Think about it here. Now, the Nation gave us The Rock. The corporation molded The Rock because The Rock really grew his persona.
They gave him the rub.
It gave him the championship. So now he's moving from mid to, remember, at that time, he was just an Intercontinental Championship type of guy.
Yep.
He gets with Vince McMahon. He's he automatically put in the upper tier. His first reign as WWE champion. As you mentioned, you got Ken Shamrock, the world's most dangerous man. You have Test. You have the Big Boss Man. You have some heavy hitters in that group.
Yep, a lot of famers, a lot of Hall of Famers.
Yeah, and not to mention you still have Patterson and Briscoe. I know they were the Stooges, but they played their role very well, along with Sergeant Slaughter as the backup to Vince McMahon. And then remember, at one point in time, we seen things we'll never see. We saw Shawn Michaels and The Rock together. We saw Triple H and The Rock together.
Yep.
They bring in a Kane. The corporation had some people. So I have to put corporation as number 8 on my list.
So would the corporation be like Todd Gunderson and his crew? That be? No.
You know what? It really would be. Todd would be Vince McMahon. And Todd would make a very great Vince McMahon, by the way.
Yeah. I like your corporation. Obviously, they were my first alternate. So if you had to kick out one of my bottom 5 or 6, they'd be there. The impact was good. Vince pulling the curtain back, and I to the day I die, I will tell you that Vince McMahon is the greatest heel ever.
Yes.
The greatest heel. He represented the boss that everyone hated and wanted to kick their ass.
Very true.
And everyone that fought against him, mainly Stone Cold, was me, was you, your parents, my parents, who just wanted to put a foot in the boss's mouth
and drink a beer while doing it.
Yeah, but as the owner of the company pulled the curtain back and said, "I'm the owner," he just pulled the lever sometimes and said, "I'm the owner. I'm the corporation." That was made for good TV.
It was, and I will have to say, and a lot of people, give me slack for this. Vince McMahon helped elevate Stone Cold's career. He gave him the perfect antithesis, perfect rival. Like
Jim Ross always says, without a good heel, there is no good face.
Thank you. And Vince McMahon was perfect. I mean, who didn't love that? You're fire.
Hey, look, I watched that, as we talked earlier, I watched that Ultimate Warrior documentary.
Yeah, yes.
And you go through the first 6 years of Hogan's career, his challengers were Piper, Orndorff, Earthquake, guys that people hated, King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant. Like Vince fed him major heels.
Yes.
And one of the challenges that happened with the Warrior was, one, he couldn't go more than 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't have anybody to feed him.
Mm.
There was no major heels in the early 90s like Hogan had.
That's true.
Right? So
that's true.
In order for him to become a great champion, there was no heels.
No.
And so he failed.
And
they put the belt on Slaughter.
Yeah, and that sucked because the Warrior had such a following. He really did. Yeah. He had such a following. People love the Ultimate Warrior. People love people that paint their faces. I see.
I may do that at work. I'm gonna do that.
Hey, you should do that. I'll just take
Shake
a picture.
Some ropes.
I would show up there that day.
All right. Number eight.
You've
already said them on your alternate. I think they were great for several reasons. One, every one of these guys could wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them. Two, they were unpredictable. And we just mentioned it. In order to have great faces, you got to have great heels. And when they went Team Canada, the Hart Foundation was hated by everyone.
Yes.
And what was cool is they were all family except Pillman.
Yeah.
So Brett, Owen, Bulldog, Neidhart, all family. You add crazy ass Pillman to that group, it's over.
Oh my God.
It's over. So you and I agree, Hart Foundation is on the list somewhere as the greatest faction ever.
Oh, for sure. And not to mention, Brian Pillman had that history with Steve Austin with Stone Cold, because they were the
Hollywood Blondes.
Hollywood
Blondes.
Yeah, yep. So they were a tag team. So you add that factor, adding that with the fact that Bret Hart really hated this dude,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think Bret Hart and Stone Cold honestly have one of the most underrated rivals to ever. I mean, you hear them always talk about, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, Vince.
Nah.
But Bret and Stone Cold had some fights.
And you could argue outside of Vince, Bret made Stone Cold on the double turn.
He did. That WrestleMania 13 that we mentioned, man. And that was the night that we get to see Ken Shamrock get a little bit in action. So I agree. The Hart Foundation, man, especially Owen Hart, him holding the 2 Slammies, him being the tag team champion, him being the Intercontinental champion. I mean, Owen Hart just had all the gold.
Yep. He did. That was great.
That was Rob, my guy. Man, rest in peace.
Who's your
to
number
Owen
7?
Hart, by the way.
Rest in peace, Owen.
All right. So my number 7, you mentioned them. The New Day. And I know that they're not Hall of Famers yet, but they will be. They will go down in the Hall of Fame. I think Kofi will get 2 introductions, one by himself and one as the leader, individually and as the leader of the New Day, because I believe Kofi, they kind of went off Kofi's experience. Kofi came in already. He was Intercontinental champion. He was a United States champion. As far as mid-tier, he was there. He was one of the top guys. So, to see that group come together, they've been a tag team champions 11 or 12 times. I mean, longest SmackDown reigning tag team champions of all time.
Great energy. Crowd loves them.
Kingston finally becomes the WWE champion. Kofi
run,
Mania.
That WrestleMania run from January all the way through, they held him back. He was in the Elimination Chamber, almost won that match.
Yes.
And then the ground swirls, almost Daniel Bryan like.
Yeah, it
a
did.
few years earlier, the that groundswell, the fans chose the champion at that point.
They did. Yep. They wanted to see the underdog win, and they knew that Kofi had put in his time as a superstar at that company. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you mentioned time. Is he the longest? And I don't mean like Kane or Undertaker, who's on the Legends contract.
Yeah.
In terms of performers, who's the longest current member for WWE that's performed?
Oh,
Kofi, Ziggler,
Kofi, Ziggler
Miz
on that list. Miz definitely on that list. I remember Miz from the Real World. Like I used to be a fan of that show. So I mean, the Miz, you know, he's another guy who I have much respect for because he went after what he wanted. He spoke that into life. Like he was literally one of the people I've seen. This dude was walking around the apartment with his championship belt in the air. And then next thing you know, you look up, he's winning the main event at WrestleMania. You got to give kudos where kudos are due. Yep. But I agree with you. I would say Kofi right now is probably the old veteran, the old cowboy in the locker room right now. Because AJ Styles has been wrestling for a long time, just not with this company.
Yeah. Orton might be there too.
Orton as well. But remember, Orton and Kofi had a little rivalry at one point in time. They've been around for a while.
Stupid. And Orton held him down. Remember that? Because he hurt him almost. But I think Orton, because Orton came in with Lesnar and Cena.
Yes, he came in with the especially with Cena doing that what they call it, the attitude, not attitude, but
aggressive.
Aggressive, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Ruthless aggression.
Ruthless aggression. Yeah. Ruthless aggression, you know. So yeah, Orton, because I still remember Orton's debut. I still remember him hitting the RKO for the first time because that wasn't his signature move when he first got there. He actually used to do
that's
like
right. He had that
DDP.
move where you flipped him over.
He did the MVP move. You know.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah.
All right. Number 7 for me is one of my all-time favorites. I'd love to put them higher.
Okay.
Mainly because I love their manager. Like maybe my favorite character of all time. And they had a valet as well, who was a badass, and she's a Hall of Famer.
Okay, I think I know where you're going with this.
And I don't think any of these is not a Hall of Famer or will be soon.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be the second of 3. One of my people will be on a list in my top 10. So the Dangerous Alliance.
I was just actually watching a clip about them.
Paulie Dangerously led this group with his telephone, right? Medusa was their valet who could go. She could go. You had Arn Anderson, who this is the second time he's on my list. He and his family. Now he's in this one, and obviously he's going to be a little higher later on the list.
Yep.
Beautiful Bobby Eaton, one of the greatest tag team champions of all time, no matter what incarnation he was with. Larry Zbyszko, who was a U.S. champ, TV champ, and he was also a AWA World Champion and feuded with Bruno Sammartino in WWE.
Okay.
All right. Michael P.S. Hayes, Michael. Ravishing Rick Rude, World Champion, Intercontinental Champion, great feuds. Showed up on Monday Night Raw and Nitro on the same night. What a difference a day makes. I'll never forget that promo. The beard shaved off. And last but not least, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. He still had hair at that time.
Find me a group in your top 6 that can match those guys, title for title or Hall of Fame for Hall of Fame, and I'll call you a liar, Rob.
Oh, you know what, Kev? We should do this show more often because he gave me an excellent transition into my number 6. Evolution. You want to talk about more Hall of Famers? You want to talk about champions? Well, you're looking at Evolution because they were led by the Game, who was a 15-time world champion. Triple H, who he's gonna make my list a couple times on this faction list because Triple H was a guy of factions. You have the Nature Boy, the original king of swag, 16-time world champion. We talking about Batista, who's having a great career after wrestling. with the Guardians of the Galaxy, his Amazon movies that he's doing. I think it's one called The Army of the Dead that's coming out. So, Batista is doing this thing. He's been world champion on quite a few occasions. And the Viper, Randy Orton, who's been a staple for the WWE for the last, almost 20 years.
Does that guy age?
He doesn't. I'm starting to think Randy Orton is a vampire. I'm starting to think he's sipping from the fountain of youth.
He's Gangrel.
He's sipping from the fountain of youth, man. I'm telling you, Randy Orton still looks as good as he did from the time he debuted, and he hasn't slowed down. You know who's another guy like that? Dustin Rhodes, Goldust. He doesn't. I saw him wrestling with AEW. I say, ain't this dude like 60? And this
props to him. Hey, that's another very underrated character of the Attitude Era.
Yes.
Because when Vince came out and said we're going to be a little edgier, well,
you don't get much edgier
than him and Val
touching
Venus.
On himself.
Yeah. I think Val Venus and the Godfather and Goldust said we just got edgier.
They said you want it edgier, you got it. Especially the Godfather, man. That was my guy.
Yeah, but good for Dustin Rhodes, man. The shadow of his dad. He was always a good wrestler mid-card. And then he gets pushed up to high mid-card, and he was a staple Intercontinental title chaser.
He was. Razor. Yeah, I remember the fights with him and Triple H.
Was that WrestleMania 9 or 10? What was the Rowdy Piper match he had where they beat the dog crap out of each other in the Hollywood parking lot brawl?
I think it was 9 or 10?
I think it was 9.
Yeah, it was one of those up there, Russ. I do remember that. And here's a little interesting tidbit. Goldust was the person that was in the rivalry with Triple H when we got introduced to China. Because remember, China came and choked Marlena out in the crowd.
Marlena. Yep. Yeah. Wow. Gosh.
Yes.
We got to do this more often.
Oh, bro, I told you, Kev. I know, man, my mom would tell you, man, sitting on my granddad's lap watching wrestling as a young kid, she would order me every as much as she could, because those pay-per-views were expensive. But I remember her ordering me the pay-per-views. I'm taping them on VHS. I remember one time she got mad because I taped on over a Jerry Springer show. That's how we
would go down to my neighbors.
We
would go down to my neighbors. They had a satellite about as big as the wall over here.
Yeah.
And they had a descrambler. We would watch the WrestleManias. I mean, to this day, Rob, we still have Royal Rumble parties.
Oh,
10 guys put $10 in a hat. They all get 2 or 3 names out.
Yeah.
We pay out money for the winner, longest time in the ring, shortest in the ring. Oh yeah.
You know what? Put me on one of those invitation lists.
All right. Well, let's see what the rest of your list says first, Rob.
Okay, we're gonna see. And who's your number 6, Kev?
Almost top 5. But had they been around a little longer, they'd have been there. But the impact, the titles, and every one of them are main eventers now. The Shield.
Ooh, Donna.
Yeah, I mean, the look, the feel, coming through the crowd, but strip all that away and peel the onion back. You had 3 main eventers.
3 main eventers.
Obviously, Roman's carrying the torch now on one channel. Seth is main eventer. And then Dean walks into AEW and he's a main eventer.
Completely changes that company, the dynamic of that company.
Yep. He was the first big signing, but overall, were they together maybe 4, 5, 6 years? Not a long time.
Yeah.
It's funny. We look at all these and we think, man, they were together forever. I bet many of these guys weren't together very long.
No.
That's why guys like the New Age or New Day are so impactful that it's still together, and all the variations of the Heenan family and the Dangerous Alliance or the DX even had variations.
Yes.
Nation did, Horsemen, all these guys. But those 3 guys were it.
They were.
That's it.
They were. And I got to give
I was there. Oh,
tonight,
front row in my Iron Sheik neon bright yellow T-shirt with my buddies. I was there the night that Triple H had Randy Orton to his left and said, "There's always a plan B."
Always a plan B.
And that was it.
And Seth Rollins, he really did that perfectly, because you felt the pain. Like, come on, Seth, for real, man.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that hurt. Hey, that reminded me of the late 90s when a guy turned on his somebody to become part of the NWO, and it was very corporation like.
Yeah.
Where, God damn it, he's the EVP of WWE, always gets his way.
Like,
you know,
come on, man. And not to mention, I got to give a shout out to Roman Reigns, because this head of the table character that he has developed, I love it. I mean, he's like one of the reasons I still watch SmackDown. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of fell out of Raw because it's just like all over the place sometimes. Like, and when I say I fell out of it, I can watch Raw, just not on when it premieres. Like if Monday Night Football is on and Raw is on, I'm watching Monday Night Football. So you know, I'll record Raw and I'll watch it later. But SmackDown, with the people they had on SmackDown, like Sasha Banks, you know, loving how they did Jey Uso, but Roman Reigns has really taken over that show. Like, I almost don't want to see him lose.
That reminds me of the Ruthless Aggression era where Paul Lee, it's funny how he keeps coming around.
Yeah.
But Paul Lee was running SmackDown and Vince was running Raw, and it was a competition where Kurt Angle and all these young and Cena and those guys were like, let's just go beat Raw.
Yeah.
And it made the product better. But I don't think, my personal opinion, greatest character, top 3 of all time, I don't think it's a coincidence that Paulie Dangerously is involved in that.
Out.
With Roman.
Paul Heyman, he creates magic and he doesn't get enough credit. That everything that guy touches turns to gold. He gave us Stone Cold. He's given us Brock Lesnar, CM Punk. Now he's giving us this version of Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman is a genius.
He gave us the Attitude Era.
Yes.
ECW forced Vince's hand.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we get raunchy over here.
Yep. All right, who's your 5, Rob?
The Shield. The Shield came in as my top 5. As you mentioned, we're talking about every one of them has been a Grand Slam champion. They've held all the gold that they can in WWE. We talked about the impact that, you know, Seth Rollins, I mean, his WrestleMania moment beating Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, you know, cashing in his Money in the Bank, curve stomping Roman. I mean, is you that magic?
There's a second one, and I'm not sure if this was WrestleMania. This might have been the Rumble match they had, but when he went to curb stomp Randy Orton,
when he lifted him in the
and he pulled
that
the
was
RKO
WrestleMania.
Down.
It was WrestleMania because I remember they were out. That was the night that Sting went against Triple H.
Yeah, they stole the show before the Sting match.
I would never forget when he popped him up for that RKO. And we know Randy Orton can hit the RKO out of nowhere. This was truly out of nowhere because, you know, it's funny to me. I think these wrestlers sit in the back and say, how can we do something that we've never done before?
Yeah, they have to. Yep. They said Michael PSAs was the producer of all those TLC matches.
Really?
Yeah, with the Hardys,
the
Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys. Yep, he produced all of those. All that crazy shit.
That's another guy though, man. Brother Hayes, man. Michael P.S. Hayes. He knows wrestling. You know, you just have those guys that just has a knack for the business, and you can tell they love what they do.
Well, when you're from Bad Street, USA, it's born and bred in you. That's not bad. That's not bad for you. All right.
Who's your number
5? Evolution. I mean, you go back to my criteria and I'll look at it. It's Hall of Famers. Did they change the business? Did they launch superstars? 2. They revitalized 1.
Yeah.
And they launched 2. Did they have championships? Yes.
Yes.
I think they were cool as a kid.
Yes.
They hit every box on my list, my criteria, except change the business. I don't know. I think they were more of a reincarnation of the Four Horsemen.
Yeah, they were.
But championships, launched people, and I thought they were cool as hell, man.
They were. And they gave us the Legend Killer. That persona of Randy Orton. Hey, the Evolution. Hey, that's why they were almost in my top 5. But
man, don't you know you're a fan when a guy can do a hand gesture or something without saying a word, and you know the guy you're with. You just know. Because I would never forget that look on Randy Orton's face. He's sitting on Batista's shoulders. Yeah.
Oh God. Hey,
Yeah,
Triple H, don't be mad because he won the title. He did what you couldn't do.
We need to talk to Sam Hamilton. And every time he interviews a candidate and they don't get the job, instead of like calling him and sending him a letter, he just needs to just give it to him.
Just give him a thumbs down. You didn't make the cut.
No words. All right, who's your 4,
okay,
Rob?
my number 4. So I like that you brought up your criteria again, because this group do have Hall of Famers, but they also changed the game, because at this point we never seen anybody like them. And that would be the Undertaker and the Ministry of Darkness. They come in at my number 4. The Ministry, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I got to look in the camera, because Undertaker, with this whole sacrificing people, putting them on his symbol, let's talk about the members of this group. You have the Acolytes, who later on became the APA, and Bradshaw and Farouk. You have the Brood. You have Edge, Christian, and Gangrel. Edge and Christian are Hall of Famers. So you have to you have to look at that. You have Midian. You had Viscera. I mean, and then you have the legendary Paul Bearer, who we know, as far as manager and wrestler goes, Undertaker and Paul Bearer has to be in the top 3 of all time. I mean, when he got away from Brother Love, and he let Paul Bearer mold and have his way with this Undertaker persona, it was I still remember kids' faces when Undertaker first was introduced to a WWE ring. It was Survivor Series. Remember, he comes out as a member of Ted DiBiase's team.
Yep.
Kids thought that they saw a monster. I mean, people were going home saying they had nightmares about this dude. And he not only takes that character to new heights, he takes it to a more evil demeanor, more satanic, more cult-like. And it was crazy, but it worked, because people were really like, we have never seen anything like this before. I mean, he would come out there speaking in tongues with the druids and the fire and the torches. I love the Ministry of Darkness, and I really hated when they did that corporation ministry crap. I didn't like it. I think they tried to do too much. But when the Ministry was the Ministry, that was a group to be reckoned. I mean, you got these vampires, and the Brood had the coolest interest in the world. I don't care what anybody says.
The blood up through the stage.
Remember, they'll come up through the fire on stage.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Looking like a scene out of Blade.
So hey, you know what they call the rub, right? That's the John Cena takes a beating from Nexus. That's the rub. Like I'm gonna rub a little super. Is Gangrel underrated for giving the rub off, like pushing Edge and Christian? Is it?
I think
extremely underrated.
I wouldn't say extremely underrated. Edge and Christian had more personality, and they were more than the Brood.
It was going to get there, wasn't it?
They were going to get there, because when they became, I mean, I still remember the totally reeks of awesomeness, 5-second poses.
What was that little instrument? What was that little instrument they played?
Kazoo.
Kazoos.
I mean, I love Edge and Chris, and then Edge, changing his character again, becoming a rated R superstar, the ultimate opportunist. Edge made that character work. I mean, Edge deserved to be in the Hall of Fame, and I still remember his most recent pop, returning from neck injury in the Royal Rumble.
Oh yeah,
that has to go down as one of the loudest pops in WWE history.
Yep, YouTube it. I'll tell you a guy, before we get into my top 4, a guy I wanted to put on this list so bad. He's one of Dangerously or Paul Heyman's always going to be top for me. Yeah. Rick Rude's always top. I love the whole spray paint your opponent's wives on your trunks. I wanted to find so bad a place to put Eddie Guerrero on my list.
I know,
but he just wasn't part of a faction that was top 15. Because
the Radicals they didn't do it for me.
The LWO, watching him wrestling, but yeah, LWO. No, he just wasn't there. So number 4 for me is DX.
Okay,
but here's the version of DX.
Okay,
it's not the Shawn Michaels version.
I know it can't be.
No, it's the Triple H New Age Outlaws, and the promo the X-Pac cut. The promo and China, obviously,
of course,
rest in peace. the promo that X-Pac cut after Bischoff fired him and Shawn was gone, and Triple H come back and says, when you got someone missing, you go to your friends, you go to the Click and break it down, right? And X-Pac comes out and he just scathing promo on Eric Bischoff. It was a shoot, man. That was a shoot interview.
That was a shoot for the ages.
Yep. So that incarnation, the Jeep pulling up on the
pulling up to WCW.
Yeah. So all those skits. Shawn was good, and that Rick Rude group. It was Rick Rude, Shawn, Chyna, and Triple H. But the New Age Outlaws, come to life during that time. So that's what I'm going with. DX is my number 4.
All right. And you know what? People don't know this because, people like us, Kev, we watch the behind the scenes stuff.
Yep.
They put DX with the New Age Outlaws because of the ego of Shawn Michaels and Triple H, because they couldn't take the fact that at that point in time, New Age Outlaws had more popularity than they did. People loved the New Age Outlaws. Yeah. They were just
you
original.
Didn't know?
Oh, you didn't know? He said, "Oh, you damn right." I love me some Jesse James, boy.
2 words for you.
Suck it. Okay. I have to agree with you. DX deserves to be on this list. My number 3, and I know they're probably your number 1 or your number 2, the Four Horsemen. You have to give love to the Four Horsemen. And my version of the Four Horsemen is the original version. I love Arn Anderson.
Ole.
Yes, Ole Anderson. JJ
Ole.
Dillon. You had Tully, and then of course you had the Nature Boy Ric Flair. I mean, I still remember watching him cut those promos, man. Even though I wasn't alive during that era, when history is so great, you're gonna find out about it. And thank God for YouTube. Thank God for YouTube, which is what I hope you guys are watching this platform on right now. But watching Ric Flair promos with the Four Horsemen were just the greatest, like one of the greatest to ever do. They were all champions. You had the TV champion, the tag team championships, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, the rivalry between Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, the American. I mean, those guys used to put on a show for people. And I know a lot of people would be like, but what about Chris Benoit, Steve McMahon? No.
No.
You want to talk about the Horsemen? You got to go to where they were formed, the original Horsemen, because that was the start to me of swag. Them guys had swag.
I'll tell you a sign of popularity. My wife and I, we have Red season tickets. Every Saturday home game, we take our kids. We're only about an hour and a half away.
Okay.
You go into a Reds game, a Pacers game, a Colts stadium. Hell, even tomorrow night, I'm going to go to watch the Knights playoff game.
Okay.
Against the Avalanche. And you go, woo! The whole place will do it.
That's
done. Done. That's lasting power.
I tell everybody this: everywhere is Flair County. Everywhere is Flair County. Yeah. If you don't know who Ric Flair is, you need to go take yourself a serious history lesson.
I'm not going to speak on your Horsemen because they're going to come up soon on my list.
I already know. I'm going to go ahead and let you have your number 3.
Number 3, I think in terms of change the business.
Okay.
Hall of Famers.
Okay.
Did they launch superstars?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they were cool as hell, or I hated them.
Okay.
Nation of Domination.
Okay.
So here's my 2 cents. Change the business. What does Ron Simmons do? First African American heavyweight champion of all time.
Heavyweight champion, yes, sir.
Did the Rock change the business? Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
He did.
D-Lo, Godfather, Mark Henry, all Hall of Famers. You called it. They all held championships. Mark Henry, I think his greatest character is the Hall of Pain.
The Hall of Pain. Oh, my God.
You want to talk about promos? I think the promo he had in the ring when he was going to retire.
Yeah, against
John Cena came out and he slammed him and he turned heel. That's
what I do.
I was hooked. I'm like, man, I love Mark Henry. Like, he's just always been a favorite character of mine.
Yes.
And what I love about him is if you just listen to his podcast he's an extremely intelligent person.
Yes, sir.
And a damn good father.
Yes, sir.
But back to wrestling, Ron Simmons, world titles, heavyweight championships. The Rock obviously is we don't have to speak about him.
Mhm.
D'Lo, great mid Carter, Godfather, Hall of Famer, and Mark Henry. I think the Nation of Domination. I think you underrated them at 9, and I think it's a disservice to this faction that you put them that low, and they should be in your top 5.
I love the Nation. I love the Nation, but they were like Charles Barkley to me. They had the unlucky luck, let's say, of having to be in my number 2, because my number 2, who they were competing against, was Degeneration X. And I'm sorry, Degeneration X to me goes down as one of the second greatest factions of all time because of one thing that you glossed over. They were one of the first groups to like do the cross promotion thing. Like they scared WCW so much that they closed the garages. They stopped them at the ticket stand. They were like, hold on, we cannot let this group come in here and just run amok over everything we've been trying to build here. I mean, if I was Eric Bischoff, I would have invited him in. Your DX versus my NWO. Let's make it happen. You know,
everyone changed the channel to my TV so you can see them show up. That's what he should have
that's
done.
what we wanted to see. So, and not to mention the career it made for Triple H. You know, as I mentioned, 14-time champion. I mean, 15-time world heavyweight champion. You know, him basing a lot of his next groups off what he did with Degeneration X. I mean, and I agree with you. X-Pac, Badass Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, Jesse James. This was the best carnation of Degeneration X. You had fun. They in China, of course. They had fun. They did things, you know, that just were unexpected. Like they really had a great time, and they held champions. I remember at one point in time, Triple H, Intercontinental Champion, X-Pac, European Champion, the Road Dogg, just the New Age Outlaws, Tag Team Champion. They held some gold. And
China held gold.
And China was an Intercontinental Champion. You know, so and the first woman to compete in the Men's Royal Rumble. Yeah. So, you know, China did a lot. That's and I hate that people overlook her. You know, China did a lot for the industry. She definitely changed it. You know, one of the pioneers in changing that word from diva to woman superstar, you know, because China was a superstar, you know.
Hold on. So based upon that criteria, I should move up Medusa and the Dangerous Alliance a little higher than, is that what you're saying?
You should, because Medusa did some great things, man. Medusa was one of the original trendsetters of showcasing that women can be more than just looks. They can wrestle, man. And nowadays, I'm just happy that they've been able to combine the two. They can look beautiful while still being fierce.
And they can go. They can main event.
Yes, they can.
All right. My number 2, man, this is straight out of high school for me. 97, Bash at the Beach, 96. So I'll give you a little history lesson for me. My first memory of the internet, like truly getting on WrestleZone, like, and logging in wrestling news. Yeah. And that's when the curtain got pulled back for me. Is like, you're like, wait, Kane's real name is Glenn Jacobs, right? Or I could just Google in, or that wasn't Google, it's probably Yahoo. Yeah. Wrestlers' real names.
Ask G's. Right? Remember Ask G's?
I went to ProWrestlingNews.com or WrestleZone.com.
Yeah.
Or I would always do Wrestling Family, where I learned that Honky Tonk Man and Jerry Lawler were cousins.
Yeah.
Right. So you learn all this stuff. That's where the behind the scenes started for me. That's where I personally pulled the curtain back, the fourth wall. Mm-hmm. And that's where I started to learn about contracts. And here's some things happening. So, you know, when Hall shows up on WCW, that was holy cow moment, right?
It was.
But you knew his contract was up. Then you start hearing the whispers online about Kevin Nash is coming, right? And then nobody knew who the third guy was. Yeah. And it was Hogan. And what better character to turn heel than the All-American who everyone was booing, right?
Say your prayers, eat your vitamins guy.
But that was one of the first that, even though guys used their real names, that Eric Bischoff made it a point to call them by their real names. That is Kevin Nash. That is Scott Hall. Right. And it was just so real at the time. We're taking over. And that was good stuff. NWO number 2.
So you have to imagine who my number 1 is.
I don't see him anywhere. 2 through 10, none of your alternates. Say it, Rob. Who's number 1?
You had to know who my number 1 was. I mean,
I know.
I started the show off.
I mean, this doesn't say NWO like yours.
Yeah.
That's Cincinnati Reds. But I know a guy who went to work every day with an NWO mask. And when members would write in about how great service was, they didn't know his name. They just say, it was the gentleman with the NWO mask on. And everybody knew that was Rob for life.
Hey, the NWO for me did it for me. I won't lie to you. I knew about WCW. I really wasn't a fan. I was a WWE guy. I grew up watching WWE. They did it for me. But on that fateful day that I just happened to say, what's going on WCW?
Yeah.
And I see this group and I'm just like, holy cow. I love these dudes, man. I've never seen Hulk Hogan look cooler. Like,
it felt real, man. The black.
It did, and for Hulk Hogan to talk his stuff a little bit, to let everybody know, you know what? I've been the man in this business for a mighty long time. And I don't need your validation. You know what, the fans, you can stick it.
Yeah. When Brett couldn't carry the torch, Vince called me back. When Warrior couldn't carry the torch, he put the belt on Sarge to call me back.
Yeah.
When WCW was failing and I was in Universal Studios making movies, they called me.
They called Ted called me. What he called him, billionaire Ted called me.
Yep, the huckster.
And then you bring in these guys, Scott Hall, who already made a name for himself as Razor Ramon. I mean, the bad guy.
But he was the AWA World Heavyweight Champion. I mentioned Harley Race earlier and Larry Zbyszko. Yeah. He carried the same title those guys did.
Yeah, because he started. I still remember him forming that team with Diamond Dallas Page. And they had their thing
Diamond
going
Stud.
on. Scott Hall had been in the business for a long time.
He was tag team champions with Kurt Hennig in AWA too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, Scott Hall has done a lot for the business. And then you look at Kevin Nash, who, he just as Big Daddy Cool Diesel, he made it cool. I just hate that his championship run wasn't as significant as others. Because during the time, his most significant fight was against the Undertaker. I mean, he was just champion at the wrong time.
What's funny is I remember Nash more for his promos and being part of the group, than I ever do for his matches.
You right,
and that's okay.
I agree with
right?
that.
I mean, it's a good character.
It was, and Kevin Nash, and also, man, I will say this: you might not remember his matches, but you do remember that power bomb. That jackknife power bomb was something of beauty. I remember just watching a compilation of top power bombs, and that jackknife, the way he snapped you up and just made you fall. And thank God the Big Show, who was then known as the Giant, was able to recover from that broken neck after he dropped him on his head. I was like,
on his head.
Yeah,
that was at War Games, wasn't it?
Yeah, War Games. Yeah. So man, but that group, and I don't like the NWO like as they started having too many people.
No.
But if we're talking
DiBiase was a cool
DiBiase
ad.
And the Giant, and
the Giant was a cool ad.
And of course,
after X-Pac,
after six, you didn't need a Buff Bagwell. You just didn't need it.
No.
I didn't even mind Vincent just because of the relationship he had with DiBiase.
Papa Shango on the new Broken Skulls Diary.
Yeah.
The excerpt I saw was his spot. Really? Bischoff had called him and offered him money to go and be the sixth person in NWO, and he declined it because Ron Simmons said, "Don't go down there, brother. Don't go down there."
Oh, well, yeah.
Yep. So Ron Simmons told him to stay where he was at.
Yeah.
And stay with Vince. Yeah. So that number 6 or 7 or whatever Vince showed up.
Yeah.
That was gonna be the Godfather.
Yeah, and,
Yep.
I didn't mind once they did that. They should have stopped because you just looked up, and then the NWO kind of got washed down because it's like, okay, if I want to get any time on TV, let me just throw on this shirt and walk out to the ring with these guys. So excuse me, but that original incarnation of the NWO, man, I mean, things of legend. I still remember the vignettes. The following announcement has been brought to you by the NWO. I mean, those were my guys. So I have to say the NWO for me. And we already know.
How old were you? Hold on. How old were you when the NWO influenced you into this number one all time?
Okay. So what that? About 99, 2000. So how old was I? Yep. I had to be like 11 or 12.
All right. So now let me walk you back to my history and why mine's number one. Because the same time frame in your life when you're 11 or 12.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were influenced by these cool guys.
Yeah.
Think back. I was born in 1978. Who was cool in 89? Right? Hold on. The Koloffs, Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, every Saturday at 6:05 p.m. on TBS. Me and my dad, every Saturday, no matter what. Clashes of Champions was free. Nikita Koloff, Sting, Lex Luger, the Road Warriors. I'm just going to go on and on and on, but there's 4 guys I'm not listing. Ric Flair, Arn, Tully, and Barry Windham. My favorite incarnation.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about, to me, Hall of Famers, did they change the business? Did they launch a superstar? They kind of all were except Barry.
Yeah.
And they launched him for a little bit, but he never hit that peak that everyone thought he was. Now, Ric Flair will tell you, other than Shawn Michaels, he's the greatest in-ring performer. Barry Windham.
Yeah.
But they were cool. So I think of feuds, it was always Flair against Dusty, Flair against Sting, Tully and Arn against the Rock and Roll, Tully and Arn against the Koloffs, Tully and Arn against the Road Warriors, Tully and Arn against the Midnight Express, Barry against Lex, Barry against Nikita, Barry against Magnum. Like, I could go on and on.
But great roster, by the way.
The NWA, that Mid-Atlantic NWA, but that was the first cable syndicated nationally wrestling promotion that there was. So my number one is the Four Horsemen.
I can't knock that. As I said, I didn't live through the Four Horsemen era, so it would impact you a little bit more than it impacted me. Just like the NWO impacted me. I hadn't seen a group like that before. I mean, these dudes, they had us, imagine a little kid growing up in the hood, and we out there in the hood talking about Too Sweet, that's why them and DX do it for me. I actually almost got suspended in school because the teacher knew when I did that. She's like, I know what that means. So,
I can remember being in my football coaches. We had block scheduling. So 90-minute class, 10-minute break, 90-minute class, 30-minute break, 30-minute lunch, and then the same thing, 90, 10, 90. So the 30-minute break, all football players were required to go to the football coach's classroom.
Yeah.
And I was a straight A student, 3.9 GPA. So he didn't worry about us doing homework, but it was to make sure everybody did homework.
Yeah.
So that was my first chance to get online.
Yeah.
Man, I just researched wrestling. And, that's 96, 97. And it was just so fun to be a fan then. And, what's fun is my dad and I talk almost every day.
Yeah.
We still talk about it. Still.
The memories, man.
It's been that common bond between my dad and I, other than, fishing and stuff. But it's hard to replace.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's my list.
Hey, this has been fun, Kev. I'm really glad that we went through with this, man. I've enjoyed myself walking down memory lane because wrestling is a part of who I was growing up. I loved, I remember when they used to really write great storylines and they'll leave you hanging at the edge of your seat. You're like, I gotta watch next week Monday Night Raw. What happened when those lights went off? What went on? Oh man, did you see the way that the NWO threw Rey Mysterio like a dart?
Or the 6-month builds, man. Like the whole breakup of Macho and Hogan, like that thing lasted 6, 8, 10 months, all the way, up to WrestleMania 5.
Yeah. And we saw the battle of the icons. So I appreciate this. I know you're a busy man. I have to thank you again. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this guy's at work, man. This is how dedicated he is. He's gonna take care of work and he's gonna help out with the podcast. I appreciate you, Kev. This is definitely gonna be one of my higher rated episodes. Humbled and appreciative that you decided to join me today, brother.
Rob, I appreciate you. Let's talk soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hope you all have a great one. And as you guys know, this is the end of the show. I'm glad that you guys were able to sit with me and my guest today as we just walked on down memory lane. Definitely was a beautiful experience. Join me next week. As you know, we got a lot to talk about with the NBA playoffs. Embiid is down. AD is down. The Lakers look like they're going to get eliminated, and so does the Clippers. This is crazy, y'all. Come join your boy, man, for the hottest sports conversation in the nation. Hope you guys continue to be great. And you already know the slogan, baby. We gone. There's a bigger fight going on. There's a much bigger agenda than the streets. And I know sometimes it's hard to see that far in front of us. But we have to look past the illusions, look past the delusions of grandeur, and look at the bigger picture. We need to become better versions of ourselves each and every day. Fight for what you believe in. Because if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. We just getting started, baby. You guys know the slogan now. Hope you all have a great evening. And we go.